Lonely Monk Productions. I don't know if y'all have heard Dickhead Blues by Kara Jackson yet, but yo!
That's my Jawn! Hey yo, displace the guilt and...
What's good, friends and family, neighbors near and far? Welcome to an all-new episode of the Yo, That's My Jawn podcast. The podcast, website, brand, movement, way of life dedicated to the embrace and championing of your passions. I am your host, Nate Runkle, a.k.a. Giancarlo Esposito, a.k.a. Nate 3.0, back at it again with yet another episode of the podcast. As always, I hope this podcast finds you all in good health and in good spirits. On today's episode, I am joined for a chat by singer-songwriter Andrew Duhon. We talk about his music, New Orleans, and his latest album, Emerald Blue. And that's coming up in a minute. But first, hello, my friends. I hope you are all doing well. You know, spring is here, the sun has been out, and guys, I have been wearing shorts. Yeah, man, I am loving it. Well, things are about to get a little bouncy here for the next few weeks as we head into May. So let me just say right now, do not be mad at me if the release schedule gets a little wonky. I've got my big Risk show coming up on the 27th of April at Caveat in New York City, and I've been doing a lot of work piecing together my story for that, and that's been taking up some time. And you know, right around the corner from that is my gosh dang 46th birthday on the 2nd. Oh yeah, it is. And that whole week, I have a full dance card at Tunage with the non-com convention at WXPN. And then following that, I cap the week off with a weekend of Dave Haas's Sing Us Home Festival on the 5th and 6th, where I am so excited to see Dave and our other former guests, Catbite and the Tisberries, rock out Manny-Unk alongside everyone else on that epic lineup. Tickets are still available for that one, so be sure to snag those. And then, Sunday the 7th at the Sellersville Theater, today's guest, Andrew Duhon, will be taking the stage, and I am trying to end a week of incredible music with more incredible music. Not to mention that day, I'm recording episode 1 of a new project that I'm producing that I can't wait to share with you. And something else enormous is happening that week that I can't talk about just yet, but I am so incredibly excited to share it with you as soon as I can. Yeah, man, busy like a bee, pals. So, again, if the release schedule gets a little silly for the next few weeks, just know that it's for a good cause. But the best way to stay on top of everything, be it release schedule or any other information about the show, is to get yourself on the mailing list. Visit www.yothat'smyjawn.com and sign on up to get them sweet updates delivered straight into your inbox. Or, you know, you can click the link in the show notes here wherever you are listening to this. And as always, you can find us on all of the socials at Yo, That's My Jawn. Okay, a quick break, and then we will return with my conversation with Andrew Duhon. Stick around, we will be right back. Do you like storytelling? Or do you like me? Well, join me on April 27th at Caveat in New York City on the Lower East Side as I share a true story from my life on the show Risk. Created and hosted by my former guest and my pal Kevin Allison, Risk is the live show and weekly podcast where people tell true stories they never thought they'd dare to share in public. And here's a tip. Tickets are available now for $18 if you purchase them in advance, or, $20 at the door if you wait until the day of. Can't make it to New York but still want to catch the show? Well, the night is being live streamed via Stellar, and those tickets are only $15. Visit www.risk-show/tour for more details. That's www.risk-show/tour. Hope to see you there. My guest today is a singer-songwriter whose warm, earthy, confident voice and his musical storytelling evokes the everyman swagger of Jim Croce's Bad Bad Leroy Brown and the plaintive beauty of John Prine's Angel from Montgomery. His latest album, Emerald Blue, is an 11-song collection written during the uncertain lockdown of the pandemic. He will be performing at the Sellersville Theater on May 7th at 8 p.m. Folks, it is my honor to welcome to the show, Andrew Duhon. Ladies and gentlemen, I am joined today by the great Andrew Duhon. Andrew, thank you for joining me on Yo, That's My Jawn.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. This is a new word for me and a new podcast and the whole thing.
Yeah, Jawn is like this Philly-specific thing that actually entered the dictionary within the last 2 years or something like that. So it's like we finally made it. We did it, because, there's this thing about, I don't know how deep into reading about all of the different social algorithms you are, but one of the things that has come up is that a lot of the algorithms will mark down made-up words. So if it's an unrecognizable word, it kind of thinks of it as like spam or something like that. So I've been fearing that Jawn is so specific to the area that it might knock me down in the algorithm. But now that it's in the dictionary, it's like validation.
Oh, good. And it is in the dictionary.
It is.
Okay.
I think Merriam-Webster added it maybe last year or the year before. So.
Oh, great. Do you happen to know what the definition is?
So this is the weird thing about it. It can mean anything you want it to be. It's literally used for any person, place, or thing or idea. It can be, you can be talking about someone like, yo, that Jawn over there, or you can, it's literally anything you want it to be. It's like the most imagination word ever.
Got it. It's it's loosely synonymous with like jam or jabroni. Maybe
exactly
put those together.
That's exactly right. One of the reasons I was really excited listening to the album and stuff like that is I literally 2 weeks ago just got back from New Orleans, and so Castle on Irish Bayou, I'm like I know what this is. I know this. Previous to that trip, I would have been like, oh, you made this up, or it's about an Irish Bayou somewhere. But no, that's.
I like that it can just be, a metaphor unless you know that it's not, that works.
Yeah,
that works for me.
Definitely. So let's jump in the way back. We're talking about New Orleans and stuff like that.
Sure.
Where did you grow up?
Yeah, I grew up in the burb, grew up in Metairie, which is, 10 minutes from where I live now in the Irish Channel in New Orleans. And, it was suburb life. I was, riding my, whatever was just under the GT dyno. I didn't have the GT dyno. I had whatever the, Schwinn comparative thing was. But yeah, riding around and playing baseball. And I didn't really pick up on how special a place New Orleans proper was. We'd go to the French Quarter on the weekends. But getting older and into junior high and high school years, it started to dawn on me. And then, doing some travels and recognizing, well, this place is kind of singular. And it has something that breathes and moves, and it has a soul. And then of course Hurricane Katrina, I think, did a lot for all of us to kind of hitch up and look each other in the eye and say, as New Orleanians, there's something that we all need to kind of celebrate and protect.
Absolutely. Speaking of Katrina, whenever there's some kind of very bad disaster or something like that, 9/11's another example, or, even smaller hurricanes, large storms up here, blizzards and stuff like that. There's a sense of community that kind of occurs that is one of those, silver linings or beautiful things that come out of something so dark, because it's like a connection piece. It's like a shared trauma, and strangers become family, and I wish there was a way to kind of harness that in a positive way for positive events and stuff like that. But that's one of the things down there visiting that I really kind of sat in and took in was that sense still kind of lingers down there. Like there's still that feeling of maybe not total brotherhood, but like that sense of pride and that sense of understanding. Like we made it through. You made it through something catastrophic.
Mm-hmm. Yep. The days when the newscasts wanted to talk about, maybe New Orleans isn't worth saving, or that felt asinine, I think, to most New Orleanians. But looking at aerial footage of every street flooded and the destruction, you did kind of wonder, how do we move on from this? And the answer is one step at a time. But yeah, there were a lot of questions, and they were all answered by what you're talking about, just helping each other out. And I agree with you. I wish personally I was the kind of neighbor who stopped and talked to my neighbor more often. I think I love that idea, but I think in practice I'm a bit more introverted, and something in my like post-Catholic guilt mind says, oh, they don't want to talk to me right now. I don't want to bother their day. But then there's those moments when the power's out, even when there's a near miss. We used to call them hurricane parties, and I think it's probably not too soon we call them hurricane parties again. But when the storm is going to pass and it's a near miss, we're going to get power out and some down trees, but there's not going to be any real serious harm. Those are the times when you walk out of your house and you talk to your neighbors. This time of, well, there's nothing else to do, and we do want to have a little community moment. It's almost like a check-in, and in that way, it's almost like a welcome check-in, because we don't do it enough. Thank God the power went out, because now we can all talk to each other. That sort of thing.
Yeah, it gives us a chance to pause and take a break and just kind of live in the same space that we do without distraction.
Mm-hmm. And there's I'm sure it's the same with a lot of cities, or maybe New Orleans. It has its own singularity in this too. Sure, like the Mardi Gras and the Jazz Fest and the festival season. It's coming right up. I think this weekend, in fact, is French Quarter Fest in New Orleans, and then it's Jazz Fest. You can't make a weekend in New Orleans without some festival element going on. And all of those feel like community celebrations, plenty of tourism as well. But if you're a local and you see the who's who, there is a sort of, it's a check-in too. So I suppose it doesn't have to be near tragedy or the power going out. We do have those moments that are kind of set in the calendar too.
Definitely. One of the things that I got to take in when I was down there is the kind of the Wednesdays in the Park series that they're doing, where is it, like Jefferson Square or something like that?
That's right.
And it was just exactly like you said, like the energy there, a free show with people engaged, it's very frequent that I'll go to like a free show around here, and no one's really kind of paying attention to the actual music that's going on. People are kind of just there because it's a thing to do, but like people seemed really engaged, not just with the music, but with each other and the vendors and stuff like that. It was beautiful. I absolutely love that city of yours, and I will definitely be visiting again sometime.
I love that you caught that one in particular, because you're a musician as well.
Yes.
Correct? Yeah. So I do a lot of closing of my eyes when I perform. Maybe it's the closing off one, input, just to make sure the hands are doing the right thing on the guitar and the vocal is trying to stay roughly intonated. But when I do close my eyes and I sing a particular song, many of them have particular places that my mind goes to. I go maybe to that particular street or to that particular room where I had that particular conversation with that particular gal, But Wednesdays at the Square is where I go when I sing a song called Street Fair. And it's not a heavy song. It's kind of a celebratory song that I wrote after Katrina, about the camaraderie that I felt in, dancing with strangers in New Orleans. And I go to Wednesdays at the Square when I sing that song. So I'm glad you glad you caught that one. I feel the same way about that festival and several, or that event and several of those sorts of events in New Orleans. Yeah.
No, it's awesome. That is so beautiful. So when you were like growing up, like what kind of, obviously New Orleans is, steeped in jazz and whatnot, but what was playing around the house? Like what were your folks listening to?
Yeah, I remember. Okay, so my father, I'm not. It didn't come from a lineage. My father doesn't play any instruments, and he can't really dance, so it's not him. And then my mother, she played some piano, and she loved the Dances with Wolves sheet music, a theme song to Dances with Wolves. And but what's so vivid to me is now that I play music, I recognize that she not only didn't have a sense of time, she didn't care about the time. She would just play the chords and read the sheet music and then get a little closer to make sure she's getting that chord right. And it wasn't even like trying to get better at it. That's how it always was, chord, chord, check that sheet music, chord, chord, chord. And that's just how that was the song in the house each time. So in terms of people playing music, that was the extent of it. But I also remember there were two cassettes that would always stick around the stereo, and they were Cat Stevens' Greatest Hits, which that adds up, and the other one was Michael Jackson's Bad.
Okay, all right.
I don't know.
So there might be a pop album that pops out of you like or
I guess if pop is just short for popular, I hope there's a popular album in there somewhere. I don't know.
There we go. When did you start playing? Did you start on that piano or?
Well, Mom sent us to my sister and I to piano lessons, and I remember not enjoying them. I remember trying to be taught sheet music, before we were even musical. We hadn't really made any music or figured out how to make music. We were learning how to read sheet music and what a half note and a whole note was. And that was just cumbersome. And eventually my sister and I mutinied against those lessons. But in teaching myself guitar in high school, that was easy because, you can pull up chords online and all it takes is 2 or 3 to start feeling like you're creating music that you recognize. And I think that, that's a lot more enjoyable. That'll keep you going. Whereas, learning the treble and the bass clef and forgetting where each of them go for too long, that's a tough process. I think in learning, you want to start being musical as soon as possible. Even in the simplest forms, can you make music that sounds good to you, and then that'll push you to keep going, I would think. But
definitely. I've told this story on here before, but I'll tell you because you've never heard this. But I used to work the cash register at a music store called Stewart's Music in Lansdale, Pennsylvania, and the owner, Jim Stewart, used to give lessons in the back. And as a teenager, I was just hired to kind of cover the register while he was back there, and so I would hear him teaching kids how to play Mary Had a Little Lamb and stuff like that, and go through all of the Mel Bay books and try to learn sheet music and stuff like that. And meanwhile, I was out in the store picking up guitars and teaching myself how to play Over the Hills and Far Away and stuff I was jumping straight into this, just every rock song that I ever wanted to know because of that. I can't tell you how many people I saw come through and end up quitting because they're I've been here for 2 months and I'm still playing, nursery rhymes and stuff like that. Whereas, if you start and someone teaches you just like you said, 2 chords, and all of a sudden, you get the 2 right chords. You're playing Jane Says by Jane's Addiction, right? And all of a sudden you're oh my God, I'm a rock star.
That's it.
Can you remember? Yeah. Can you remember the first song that you could play?
I'm certain that I printed out some Hootie and the Blowfish chords. What was that one? It was just G, C, and D. I'm sure. Let's see. It would have been You know,
Like Let
woke
Her
up
Cry.
alone. Yeah, yes, that's the one. Yeah, yeah, Let Her Cry. Yeah, so you
Yeah.
know, that was early on in the game, I'm sure. You know.
That's awesome. Were you like me? Did you like join a band immediately before you could even truly master that instrument, or were you?
No, in fact, I still think of myself as well. I'm always going to be learning how to play this instrument because I think a musician and a songwriter. I want to be clear to all the listeners out there. I consider those different things. You know, there is a musician and there is a songwriter. A songwriter like myself, I stand by. I believe it was Harlan Howard, who was a writer back in the day in Nashville, who said all it takes is three chords and the truth. And I love that. And I consider myself, a three chords and the truth kind of guy. Now I want to expand on that. And it's because I've been encouraged by three chords and then they get tired to your ear and you want new colors, right? And so you find new ways to find new colors. What was the question I was just answering?
It started with, did you jump right into a band, or did you?
Oh, I
And you
see.
were
Yeah, of
talking about being
course.
solo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't answer that question at all. So, right. No, I never really joined a band. It was always me in my room figuring out first, how to play some country songs or some Hootie songs or Wonderwall or, the usual. Uh, and then I started to wonder, what would my own songs sound like? And hearing on the Bob Dylan documentary, No Direction Home, I think it's Scorsese did it. And one of the journalists, I believe he was, who was in the Greenwich Village folk days, he said something like, there was so much going on back then that someone would say, Ornette Coleman is playing tonight. And he would ask them, he would say, oh, does Ornette have something to say? And I loved that. I loved that question, and that I immediately turned that question on myself. Do I have something to say? And I've been asking myself that ever since, what do I have to say? I want to lean on the lyrics, and I will forever be on the journey to figure out what it is I have to say in a song.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I very much relate to that. Anytime I've gone through any form of writer's block, it is along those lines of like, I don't have anything to emote right now, and I don't have anything that I'm trying to communicate or shout out to the world or anything like that. But when it comes, and then there's the other thing that it sounds like you gave yourself the permission to speak and to share that, which I think is a big step that, a lot of people kind of, you self-proclaimed as a bit of an introvert, that's like giving yourself that permission to not just, start writing that, but then to start sharing it and performing it. That's huge.
Yeah.
When did you start? Did you start at like coffee houses and stuff like that? Was that your outlet?
Yeah, there were open mics during college, and I would do those, but some of those were so cover driven that I just wanted. It was far too early for me to feel like I have these songs and I want to share them. I didn't necessarily feel that way about what I was trying to put together. My own songs. So an open mic where everybody played covers was fine with me. I wanted to start playing, or I think I was also pushed along that route by friends. I'm certain that I had, misgivings. It's not necessarily natural or given that someone who feels like they want to write songs by themselves in their bedroom is going to feel okay about approaching a microphone with a light on it. That's something else. And that's where it ain't so simple is you might decide that you have something to say, and you might decide that you're ready to share it with someone, and maybe they encourage you and you want to share it with more people. But then, it's easy to start thinking about, why why is my voice amplified right now, literally amplified, and having misgivings about that until you continue on that journey. And I think the thing that keeps you buoyant in that is one person at a time telling you that a song mattered to them, that they felt something in your song. So I think maybe the first step is, when I closed my eyes and I sang that song and it made me feel something. And, somehow I pushed myself in front of a microphone, and then people started to tell me that they felt something. Okay. Now I'm interested in, now it's not a soliloquy. Now it's a conversation. It starts on the microphone and then it continues when you get off stage and you talk to someone about that feeling you were just talking about,
Yeah, it's awesome. What how long were you doing kind of the dance of I don't want to share this music?
Man, I'll say that I'm feeling better about it as of like last week, maybe.
Okay. Yeah.
No, that's the thing. It's like, I think it's a journey that continues. Imposter syndrome being part of it. But somewhere along these lines, I would say 5 or 6 years ago, I think the wanderlust and the desire to just go and travel, which started, right when college ended. I wanted to get in my car and sleep in my car if I had to. Hotels were out of the question. Either find a buddy with a couch or sleep in the car. Just go try to make gas money to get to the next place and play some songs out there. And but yeah, somewhere along those lines, there was enough feedback, like I was telling you, that person to person, one at a time, and then the ticket sales start to become a thing, and now you don't have to play in the bar with the sport games that are on, in the corner, and you're selling a ticket to a place. I think that's sort of, encouragement that your self-doubt can't deny that these people bought a ticket to come see you. And that started something, in me. It helped me believe that I'm not just passionate in this for myself. I think I'm passionate in the part where it connects with someone, and then we share that connection, even just for a moment. Thank you for hearing it. Thank you for telling me that, and letting those sentiments from those people, letting those people know that their encouragement is the fuel in the tank that keeps it going. Because if I'm sure you could just be the kind of artist who doesn't need that. Maybe that exists, but for me, it is about connecting.
Absolutely. That was one of the things that, you said about, the jump from playing in a bar to playing a place where someone's buying a ticket. Like, making that leap to a stage where the person in the audience is there to listen to music and they're not just hearing you because they're forced to, because the bar paid you to be there, or there's a possibility that you're an annoyance and that they don't want you to be playing that leap. I feel like if you get there, like you can hit the ground running, because once you start feeling that kind of adoration of someone who is appreciative of what you're presenting, like that unlocks so much,
Yeah. Oh, and the only thief of joy at that point is the adage, the comparison to, the person who's 10 times as big as you. And I'm not saying, I certainly have ambition. I see opportunity, the ceiling high above me, but in the meantime, it does feel really sweet to, have a calendar in front of me full of dates and a trio that enjoys being on the road as much as I do, and knowing that we're going to go out there and connect with people and keep getting further clarity on what we're doing. And there's also the cyclical process of those travels inspiring. Could just be a line, something I'll jot into my phone. Used to do it in the pocket notebook, but I left too many of those in cabs. I'm like the Hansel and Gretel. I've got enough stuff left behind that I could probably find my way back. But just writing those thoughts down, and that's a nice moment too. When that becomes a complete circle, maybe you wrote a line down. And for instance, on this last record, there was a song called "Down from the Mountain," and it was inspired by a camping trip after a tour in Colorado. Went up the mountain near Winter Park, came back down, wrote the song. And how special is that to go back to Winter Park and say, point to the mountain, say, you see that thing? Went camping last time and I wrote this song. It's, that's a nice moment.
Yeah,
a nice thing to bring back.
It's a beautiful journal, it's a snapshot. It's a way to capture that memory, and sonically be able to recall that, like just to create something to it's like a time machine. I always like to say, music to me is like a good song is a good time machine, and can put you right in that spot for good or for bad.
No, that's it. And I will forever enjoy sad songs, whether I, am sad or not. And what is that? Here's another adage for you. I like a good song has to cost you something as a writer, right? And I love that. And when I feel like a line or a song costs me something to say, I feel like I'm on the right track to something that might be powerful. For someone else and for me. But when I feel that as a listener, I feel like the songwriter, it costs the songwriter something just to write these lines, and that's my favorite kind of lyric. That's my favorite kind of song, is when that is very clear, like this cost this person something to say, and to help us be connected in that way, because I feel it too. And I didn't think to say it that way. I didn't feel the same thing that person felt, but I feel what they're saying,
Definitely. I had a guest on here, Laura Liscano, and she has, this album that she just put out, and it's got a lot of really personal stuff on it. And I was kind of, asking her about like performing those songs live and what that's like. And, because like, I don't know how deep I went into it with her, but like for me, I've written songs like that, and I cannot perform some of them live. I just can't do it. Like I wrote it to kind of emote that feeling because I couldn't keep it inside, but also I've tried to perform them and like it can go really bad, but
in what way?
That kind of, like I said, the time machine thing, like if it puts me in that, it's hard to get out of it. And I don't mean it like I can't play the song, it just, it changes the I have to be careful because it can very easily change my mood and my tone and then affect the entire rest of the set, which would make sense. It makes me understand why there's songs that, it's like, oh, that band never plays blah, 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 like why did they never do that? And then there's probably a good reason for it. But one of the things she said is, and the way that she processes it, and I don't know if she came up with this or she read it somewhere, but she said, you have to sing from a scar. You can't sing from an open wound. And I was like, oh my God. But that totally sums up like what I love about music. I love music that comes from that shows its scars, it shows a life lived. And that's where I feel like the good stuff is. And I feel like your stuff, man, is just like, you can feel it, like you can feel where it comes from, and a lot of it, is your voice. You have just such a beautiful, soulful voice, but the lyrics as well, man. Like just tying them together, you paint such a beautiful palette with lyric and sound, man. And I absolutely appreciate that. Like, did it take you a while to kind of find your voice like that, or?
Absolutely, and thanks for hearing it. But yeah, I remember when I started, I was in one room, as far as I could get from, the rest of the family, and I could hear my sister kind of giggling, and it was like involuntary. My sister's not a mean person, lovely person, but it was funny to her hearing her brother trying to sing, probably, out of tune and intonation horrible, right? But yeah, it was clear that I wasn't like a natural. I had to find my voice in more ways than one. So, the guitar felt right because cowboy chords, once my fingers could put up with the strings, they felt good. And then you're working on changing from chord to chord, and that goes slow and you're frustrated. But all of it just felt natural. And somewhere along the line, it became clear enough that the vocal was good enough to not get in the way of the lyrics and deliver the lyric believably. And once again, then it's just about what do I have to say. So I feel lucky to have opened up my mouth and found the vocal, and then it's just about finding the voice, so to speak, the story, what do we sing now?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you definitely found some things to sing, my friend. So when did, when were you finally ready? Like how did Songs I Wrote Before I Knew You, how did that leap come? Like, were you did you just have the songs that like, you knew you were like, all right, this is a collection. Let's lock this down.
I have a cool story. Let's see. So I was going to my favorite open mic night in New Orleans. I had kind of whittled them down and decided the one that was, worth my time every time, and I would go every Tuesday, was at Carrollton Station, which is in the Riverbend area uptown. And, I would say 10 to 12 songwriters would show up each time. And there were the usuals and the newcomers. And there was a nice little songwriter community there. So there I was, the usual open mic, and a fella takes me outside after the set and introduces himself, and he says, well, I got a bar on Tchoupitoulas, and I came here looking for somebody to play at my bar, and I was about to leave, and then you started playing, and I wonder if you'd play at my bar every Wednesday and what you'd charge for that. And I thought, oh, well, this is cool. This guy seems like a pro, and I should probably give him, I should probably seem pro myself by giving him a real number. So I said $150. And he said, why don't we make it 250 just so I'm serious, about this, which was kind. And let's see. So 2 gigs into this weekly Wednesday, he leans over his bar at the set break and he says, okay, now I want to know, how do I invest in you? And I said, well, I don't know, but my guess would be that you would invest or, fund a record in exchange for record sales, a private record contract. And neither of us knew how to do that, but I have to shout out Loyola University and a couple of professors there, John Snyder and George Howard, who gave up their office hours to a kid who, went to the state college because it was free. I didn't even go to Loyola, but they were willing to sit down with us and help us figure out what a private record contract looked like. And we signed that thing. And every year we get together and split up some money, and we never look at the contract, which is exactly what you hope for from a contract. But what else is, it seems like to me, like that would often end with a winner and a loser. Had that record never made $1, I would have been the winner, because I would have been able to make a record with way more money than before, or otherwise. But instead, I think we both won. I couldn't have made that record without his funding, and he has won from that record. So he's become a friend. It's a nice deal. So that was how I made my first record, at least dollars and cents wise. But his funding allowed me to approach who was the only producer who had moved me at that point from production. I knew nothing about production. I knew nothing about making a record, but I had made a couple of demos with my cousin, who was an audio engineer, and Ben Lorio and I were sitting at his console after, my, measly little demo session. And he pulls up some tracks on MySpace. I will have you know, that's where we were. That's how long ago this was. Pulls up some tracks on MySpace and starts playing them. And I said, Ben, I don't mean this in, a critical way, but I'm curious. Why isn't what we're doing, why doesn't it sound like that sounds? And he kind of, he rolled his eyes and he said, oh man, it's because Trina Shoemaker produced that. And I said, who's Trina Shoemaker? What's a producer? The whole thing. But that not so distant memory made it clear what I should do at that point. I should write a letter and print it out, is what I did, because I felt, I don't know, I should have handwritten it. What was I thinking? But I put it in a manila envelope with the demos and, sent it to Trina Shoemaker, and she called me and said she thought the songs were lovely and she'd be happy to make my record. And so we made that first record, and then we made 2 other records since. I guess I have four full records out, and she produced 3 of them because she just feels like she understands. She certainly understood that young songwriter who didn't know how to record. She took me under her wing back then, and I couldn't have made a better, version of myself. Snapshots, not something I want to listen to at this point, but I think that's probably true of a lot of people. But yeah, she helped me make the best record I could make at that point, and I'll, forever be indebted to her thing, what she does as a producer, on all the records.
That's incredible. Because that was actually going to be my follow-up question, was how that connection came together. But like, it's all like, what was it in those MySpace songs that you heard? Like, do you remember who it was, first of all?
I do. Yeah. It was Shannon McNally, is a songwriter from Oxford, and she actually sang on that first record. Here's a good story about Shannon. In fact, speaking of your, what I like to call sad bastard songs. And sometimes on stage you're not ready because they're open wounds. I had a song called Coming Down Over Here on that record, and it was an open wound. And for that reason, I wanted it to be somber, and the bass line was itching me the wrong way because it was moving a little bit too much. But Trina, being, a producer with wiser ears than mine, was pushing it in another direction, and Shannon came in to sing harmony on that. And Trina asked Shannon McNally, what do you think about this bass line that's kind of moving this song? Do you, Andrew's still a little heart busted about it, and maybe we got to take it down a little bit. And Shannon looks at me and she says, man, don't cry in public, man. So we kept the bass line, a little bit more forward, which is, I think probably the right call. I'm certain, that was the right move. Now, being an older man and knowing that you can have as much blood in the lyric as you want and still make choices about the song. I'm not, a songwriter does one thing and a poet does another, and there are, similarities, but the fact that it is a song means that you have choices you can make, and they're all valid if they make you, if it feels right to the creator. Try it all out, see what moves you.
Yeah, you try a different brush or use a different color, and it doesn't have to match that feeling. It can just be something of its own and something beautiful. And I think that's another thing of growth, that, like, having the ability to let those things go, to become something else, to become its own thing. It's almost like being a parent, or I would assume, I don't have any children, but it seems like what it would be. Like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, you gotta let all the pieces moving around, and some of them just don't belong to you. because they did in the room by yourself when you wrote that song, all the pieces belong to you. But it's kind of like when and you know what, you can make the whole record with just your vocal and a guitar into your own recording setup and say that's it. But when you enter the studio with other people and you put those songs through through the wires and into the knobs, and you start considering the vast world of possibility, you know, it's probably a good idea to take some chances just to see, you know. But then it ain't that simple because studio time costs so much. You might want to do some pre-production, you know, in a studio that doesn't charge such a day rate. But yeah, taking some chances and gosh, that's an interesting place because there are the choices that we all know, the kind of the stock songwriter record that we hear probably coming out of Nashville 50 times a day. Not the Nashville pop radio thing, which is its own template, but I'm talking about the songwriters like myself who go to Nashville. In fact, the record before the last was called False River, and I went to Nashville to make it with Eric Massey, and he calls his studio the casino. He says because he gambles with artists' careers when he makes a record. That's why I hired him, because he told me that on the phone on our first phone call, and I said, okay, I like this guy. But you know, we sat down and he said something to that effect, that there's 50 other songwriters making a record in a garage, just like we are in Nashville right now, and we can make that record, or we can just try to make a cool sounding record. You know, we can take some chances. But it's still fascinating to me to hear records that have a vibe and a feel, all their own. You know, choices were made, chances were taken, and they worked somehow. You know, but swimming in that sea of possibility when the song is still blooming, and every move you make could make it wither or bloom more, and that is about taking courage in the creative process, you know, and learning not to be too precious is something else that I have had to figure out, and an important part of where I'm at.
Yeah. Yeah. What is, do you like studio work? Are you, or are you more like or do you like the live road stuff more?
The live road stuff is nice because it does pass right by, and there's not too much thought put into a slightly unintonated moment. And you know, in that way, you feel the moment as it's passing, and you're the Mickey Mouse head that goes along the lyrics. You remember that thing?
Yeah.
You know, I feel like the Mickey Mouse head when you're live is on the next lyric. It's in the moment. But in the studio, my Mickey Mouse head is on the lyric I just sang, to think, was that it? Ooh, was that good enough? And that's something I need to train out of myself, because you need to give the trueness of it, not the perfection of it, or, you know, give the trueness. So do I like one better? I'd say the live I like better, because I'm still learning on how not to be as precious and as exacting when it comes to the performance, letting it be true, and knowing that there's grace that knows whether this less than perfect thing, maybe we should do it again, or does it just feel true and we shouldn't, you know? One of the many questions that just swirl around in your head and probably make the live performance more fun than the studio for now, but we're all on the journey.
That's right. Yeah, it's a path. It's a path we're on. So the latest album came out last year, Emerald Blue. Absolutely beautiful. This was a product of the pandemic. Is that right? Did I read that correctly?
Certainly. Yep. I think whether or not they were all written, that, you know, some of them were nearly finished, but as with, I think, a lot of folks with 10 guitars in a room and staying most of their time in a van. It was good for me to get back home to these drafts of songs that were in the desk and the guitars by the wall and visit them and them alone, finish these songs and, let the ideas become songs. Don't just, leave them knowing you'll get to them at some point and take the next gig and the next gig and never say no. I think if nothing else, the pandemic for me, and let me be sensitive to the fact that I know that it was not like this for everyone. It was really hard and tragic for a lot of people. For me, it was spending time in a room in my mind and time that I had never given myself. And hopefully it was a lesson in, a proof of concept so that I might actually, by my own volition, give myself that time in the future. So, I would write, finish a song every other day, it seemed like. And I would, the way to share it at that point, it felt natural to make a video from my room, and post it on the socials and call it Quarantine Song Number 13. I didn't try to think of a clever name, just called them quarantine songs. But I think I released about 32 of them. And then, I started up the Patreon, which felt like the right move. And there were another 12 or 14 tunes on there. So there was a bunch of songs, and Emerald Blue was, kind of the distillation. All right, which of these should we record? And, that was Emerald Blue.
That's incredible. That whole time period is just so weird in that it feels like it was yesterday, but it also feels like it was 10 million years in another life ago. It was just I don't need to tell anybody. Everybody knows it was this undescribable clusterfuck. But one of the things that I always like to talk to people about, and one of the things that this was birthed from the pandemic, is like the good stuff that came out of it, the ability to kind of refocus and reframe and kind of find ourselves and understand, what are we doing and is it worth it, and so those of us who made it out with something like, I feel like the luckiest guy in the world that I was able to find something like that. Recording this and releasing it, was revisiting any of those songs any kind of challenge, or were they kind of all written from a place that it was easy enough to come back and rework, like to get back into that headspace, I guess is what I.
Yeah, I don't. None of it felt like a struggle in that sense, but I'll tell you, I think part of the reason for that is, I feel a little bit like I'm riding a wave, and I mean that in a sense that had I started 5 years before, I would be underneath the wave right now. I would have been the songwriter who hadn't figured out how to make a living doing it yet. I'd still be, trying to split up tip money with a band and feeling bad about it. And the pandemic may have been a good reason to stop trying, I don't know that, when it comes to songs, I would have had to write songs. This is what I have to do. I just don't know if, had I not had an opportunity to prove to myself that I could make a living as a songwriter, what about those people? The people what about the person who moved to New York, with a plan and a dream and just got shut down and now is in a shoebox apartment, kind of stuck? I thought a lot about people who were maybe they were going the same direction as I was with their dream. They were just a little bit earlier. I was really lucky to be in a place where the downtime is exactly what I needed and could afford, That is the luckiest thing for me. And if there's anybody listening who gave up the art in that time, I want you to know that I was in my room thinking of you, and, don't give it up altogether. Just, that was an extenuating circumstance, an external thing. And there are certainly people out there who need the art that was stifled by that happening.
Definitely. It's a beautiful, beautiful sentiment. So you're now touring this stuff and playing it out. What has the reaction been like to it? The new material.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think in that sense of it keeps moving forward and becoming more heartening. I remember the first record probably took 5 years before anybody in any regular clip let me know that songs on there were important to them. Second record, probably 2 years. Next record, a year, 6 months, not sure. But this one, people are singing along and telling me how much they like the songs, on the first promotional tour, And, I think sure, it might be a product of that particular record or those particular songs, but it's also a product of the building of those songs. Somebody hears a song 5 years old and tunes into, who is this Andrew Duhon guy, and sees his new record, decides to listen, right? It all compounds on itself. And, but that's a nice piece, to know that I'm trying to be the kind of songwriter that, when I say at a show I've got a brand new song, people might be as excited to hear that as they would be to hear the one that they like the most. They like, what happens next is the question that you would ask in a good story. And I'd like to believe that I'm trying to answer that question over and over again.
That's great. Yeah. One of the other silver linings of the pandemic and the benefits is I feel like artists and listeners have become a lot closer, and through the pandemic, the musicians that we love and the people who love us, like that bond just seemed to strengthen. And now it's and not just that, but musician to musician, I just, there's something that almost feels, it's kind of like we were talking about with Katrina and Catastrophe, that this brotherhood in the music community doesn't feel as cutthroat anymore. And it doesn't feel like, I don't feel like, I had a problem a long time ago. I've gotten over it, but I used to feel like I had to fight every audience. All right. I had to fight for their love and stuff like that. Whereas now, it's a completely different thing. Now I love the audience so much that I want to give them love. I want them to feel the love from me instead of me feel the love from them. And
Nice.
98% of that came from the pandemic. It came from doing live streams and on a Friday night, and someone sending a tip or something like that, or even not even a tip, and not even financial, but just seeing the little likes go up and stuff like that. It was a weird thing because you lost the ability to kind of connect in a physical way or in a shared space, but we went out of our way and found a way to still connect and still reach out and kind of entertain and be entertained. And it's to me one of the only good things that came out of all of that horror.
That's great, man. Yeah, it's the figurative image that of the power going off after the storm passes, and we all come outside and we're talking to neighbors we've never talked before. The next part of that story is you clean up and life goes back to normal, but you look at that neighbor differently.
Yes.
You spoke and you shared a moment together, and now things are different. Yeah, I feel that too. I like that a lot. And as when it comes to, I think especially what we might call the banter in between songs, I'm certain that there was something I was trying to hold back, because I thought I had an idea of the person who sang these songs, the place from which they come from me. I need to kind of focus myself in between songs in that direction, you know. But no, I don't do that anymore. I'm funny sometimes, you know. I'm talking a weird accent up there sometimes, just I'm like the same guy that's in the van, with the fellas. Just be that guy and let the songs be from that earnest place, and let me be me in between the songs. And yeah, that was about the becoming less precious for sure, and stop pretending like, it has to be so focused. Like, people won't get an earnest song from somebody who just cracked a joke, as if people aren't that complicated themselves, that sort of thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, at this time, would you like to go through the Jauntlet? These are my questions that I ask every guest that comes through here. It starts with the one-hit wonders, and these are just who you prefer. So it starts off always with Billy Joel or Elton John. Who would you take?
It's Elton John for me.
Okay.
But yeah. I mean, yes, it is Elton John. And I will say that neither of them have done a lot for me. Is that okay to say? Can I say that?
Yeah. Oh, no, it's totally, absolutely fair.
I like them both, but that was the one. I did see your list, and I thought that one, I would trade both of them for picking two on another list, but I know that's against the rules. Anyway, we can move on.
No, it works. It works. The next one, Debbie Harry or Joan Jett?
Joan Jett, although you want to talk about bringing something, you want to make like ovaries sound like balls, they had balls, ovary balls, and I think just Joan Jett's, you can feel every piece of energy just in a track. So what would she have been like live, Yeah, that's special, but I like them both.
I love it. Next one, Aretha Franklin or Tina Turner?
I'll go with Aretha. Like them both.
Yeah. Nirvana or Pearl Jam?
Nirvana's Nevermind was important for me. And I like them both, but I will say Pearl Jam, even early on, the words were important, and I couldn't always decipher them. I probably usually couldn't decipher them in a Pearl Jam song, so that was a bit hard, but I dug that too. And I ruined my babysitter's cassette of the Pearl Jam record. Can't remember which record it was, but I stuffed it in my backpack and hid it from her. And she'd ask for it back, and it was the most conniving, silly thing that I did as a kid. But then she found it, and I was busted, and I felt it was the worst little shit for doing that. But yeah, I wasn't ready to own up to it,
Yeah. Oh, I love it. The next one, Janis Joplin or Stevie Nicks?
Definitely Stevie Nicks. Yeah, that's it's energy and aura. The story comes from, it's like a character, that witchy character, goddess, sage. Yeah. Stevie Nicks for me on that one.
That's a package there. That is a package. The big one, Beatles or the Stones?
I'm going to go Beatles here. I don't even think it's apples and oranges, though. I think it's like, I think, what's that about? Because I can compare an apple to an orange.
Yeah, right.
But I can't compare an apple to like Mick Jagger is like a flightless pterodactyl or something.
Yeah.
I can't compare those two things. I picked the Beatles because like the stories, the worlds that they created, and like the musical things that they did, just interesting and groundbreaking. And with the Stones, it feels like rock band energy, like undeniable, but maybe I just don't get it enough to compare the two. But I Beatles guy.
All right. I like it. The last one of the one-hit wonders, Bohemian Rhapsody or Stairway to Heaven?
I like Bohemian Rhapsody in that because that idea that you take chances, and there are obvious places to go in a song, um, and then there are just chances that someone takes, and I think that Queen stuff takes chances, and that song in particular, chances were taken, but it works, man. It's crazy. How do you do that? Yeah, that's my pick.
I think one of the most underrated things about Bohemian Rhapsody is everybody focuses on kind of the operetta in the middle of it, as how
Yeah.
out of left field, where it comes through. But
Hmm.
to me, that third act, when it just starts rocking, is just it soars, and
Hmm.
it screams so loud. And like, I still remember one of the first times I ever heard it. Like, I wasn't like, it builds. And it's like
Hmm.
the most beautiful release
Yeah, man.
captured, and that's my favorite thing about me. Another favorite thing about music is anything that builds, it has to have a release that equals
Hmm.
the build up. And
Hmm.
that one pays off in just, exponentially.
That's nice, man. I like that. And the guitarist whose name escapes me, but it's just
Brian
like
May. Yes.
Brian May. Oh my gosh, just yeah, you can come up with that piece, but you got to have the slinger who knows how to bring that kind of energy with the solo, and he does, man. That stuff's crazy.
It's awesome. The next section is the top 10 countdown. As we talked prior to hitting record, Jawn can mean anything you want it to be. It doesn't have to be music, could be movie, person, place, anything you want it to be. But number
Okay.
one, what was your first Jawn? What was the first thing you were obsessed with when you were a little kid?
Oh, okay. I like John in the looser terms. I was thinking it should be like jam, like music, but I like this better. Okay, the first thing I was obsessed with was Jimmy Houston Outdoors. That was a fishing show on ESPN where this guy with like a country blonde bold haircut and his like wraparound blue blocker glasses went bass fishing. Man, I thought I wanted to be a bass fisherman. I would watch that fishing show, out of left field, but there it is. There's my first John.
That is a fantastic answer. I love that. I love that.
Uh,
Number two, what's your current Jawn? What are you into right now?
okay, I'm going to go music on this one because fairly recently, a song slapped me in the face for the first time in a while. And it was a song by Monica Martin, and it's a version with her and she and James Blake. And I believe there's a studio track of this song as well, but it's this Monica Martin and James Blake version of a song called "Go Easy Kid." The chorus is "Go easy, kid. It's only rock and roll." And it works if you're not a musician, but if you are a musician, you can take it literally. It talks about we were talking out back by the garbage cans about the dreams that we have and our 5-year plan. And I was in the park holding hands with someone who said, remember, who we were before you got in that van. It is, and then the chorus, go easy, kid. It's only rock and roll. It was like she was speaking to my soul. And in this moment where I'm trying to become less and less precious, go easy, kid. It's only rock and roll. It moves me so much. And she is such a singer. That is my current Jawn.
That's awesome. I haven't heard it. I definitely, as soon as we finish this, I'm going to have to go check that out because
Yeah,
like that is a mantra, man. That feels good. That feels real good.
truly. And the bridge, incredible. Yeah, the whole thing.
It's awesome. Number three, what was your first concert? What was the first live show you went to see?
Hmm. I'll tell you, well, the first one I bought a ticket to was before junior high, getting with some buddies. We went to the Superdome. Somebody's mom dropped us off. You know how it goes. Um, it was BB Mac opening for the Pride of Louisiana, Britney Spears.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, we were all crushing hard. It was that was the one. Yeah,
That is a fantastic first concert. I love that. That is so
yeah,
good.
yeah.
Number four, what was your last concert? What was the last live show you went to?
Buddy invited me a couple weeks ago. I don't go to enough shows when I'm back home. I guess it's kind of like you're cooking in the kitchen all week, and then you go back home, and somebody asks you if you want to cook in the kitchen. But he invited me to a drive-by trucker show, so we went to that in New Orleans, and yeah, just good to hear, some of that like Southern rock, lyrics obviously up front, and yeah, that was cool.
So you are playing Sellersville Theater in this area on May 7th. Are you in here that whole weekend, or?
No, I think we're kind of bopping along. We don't have a whole lot of off days. I think we're going to have a moment on the Jersey Shore, maybe, and we got a buddy there who's got a place to put us up, so that'll be kind of our leisure moment. But mostly, man, we're turning and burning.
Yeah, okay.
Well, people will see like on your tour, that you're going through this and that place, and they'll say, "Oh, make sure to visit this or go check out that." And I don't hate to break it to them all, and I appreciate the suggestions, but we never make it to any of that, man.
Yeah. Yeah. The day before you guys are playing, the Friday and Saturday before you guys are playing, there's a festival in this area that just started called Sing Us Home, that Dave Haas put together, and Drive By Truckers is playing the night before you're playing.
Oh, so no kidding.
It was just a kind of synergy that, that would be your last concert.
Crossing paths, constantly crossing paths.
That's right. Number 5, what was your favorite concert? What was the best show you ever saw?
Okay. Well, there was a moment at the old New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival. It's who's who every year, all kinds of acts, and been very lucky. I'm almost trying not to say too much because I feel like they've booked me like 9 years in a row, which is so kind. And these festivals need to diversify and change up their lineup. So I feel really lucky that they've, been willing to book me every year. And it's truly a highlight of the year every time. But you also, get to go check out some other shows, right? So Willie Nelson was the one that I had to go see. And it was raining that day. So I, was well equipped. I had brought my rain boots, the not duck boots. I'm talking, like shin high, nothing's getting in. Snake could try to bite my ankles. I'd be good, and most people weren't that well equipped. There was this ditch in the fairgrounds, and it was full of water, and everywhere else was packed. I didn't get out there in time to get a good spot or anything, but there was this ditch, and so I walked that whole ditch nearly up to the stage. And I just stood in the ditch and watched Willie Nelson for the first time. I had never seen him, and he was important to me. He is incredible. And to know, it may he live forever, but to know that he's getting up in years and to see him that close, it felt gentle and it felt true. And I love that I was in shin deep, water, watching Willie in the rain. I think that was it.
That's incredible. There's this like reverse Moses kind of metaphor that I'm seeing there. Like, instead of the seas parting, there was a sea put there so that you could get up close. That's awesome. I love that. That's it's a beautiful picture.
Oh, thank you for the reverse Moses. Why didn't I see that? Of course, beautiful. Yeah, nice one, dude.
Yeah, thanks. Number 6, who have you never seen live that you wish you would have? They can be living or dead.
Yeah. New Orleans is chock full of these sort of underlauded musicians. And the one that comes to mind in terms of, I get that feeling that, man, I wish I could have seen him, was Snooks Eaglin. And he was a blues guitarist and singer, soulful voice, beautiful guitar player. It was kind of like if Lightnin' Hopkins, who was from the Texas Hill Country, was from New Orleans. He had the kind of Delta bluesy feel, but it was straight out of New Orleans. And he played at like the bowling alley juke joint, that was down the street. And I was just a little bit too young to go. And he passed away probably, 15 years ago now. But there was a window in there where I was old enough, and I just didn't have the sense to go check him out. But I would have loved to.
Those are the misses that always hurt the most. The ones where you're just like, I could go tonight and check that out, but I'll catch it next time. Or I'll just see it. That happened to me with Elliott Smith. He was playing in town, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna miss this tour, but I'll catch him next tour. And then like within months, he was gone. And I was like, like,
yeah. And it could be that you just didn't get to those songs or that record, yet. And that was certainly the case for me with Snooks. And, I guess all the more reason that when you see the promotional bills go up, if something catches us, maybe we should, let me hear that record real quick, just see if, this is a thing.
That's right. Just indulge and give it the shot that it might need, Yeah.
That's it.
Number 7, name an unappreciated, Jawn. Name something you wish had some more attention to it.
There is a songwriter whose name is Jesse Winchester. And, I'll say that his live records are impeccable. I don't even know if they're records. They're just, maybe they're bootlegs because they sound like that. They just sound like people at a wine club or like a wine bar. But he's playing, and his right hand finger picking stuff is intricate and amazing, and he never misses a note. His voice is beautiful, and his songs and rhythm and rhyming are so clever. He is an incredible songwriter. But then, I guess part of me, I think if I were to venture a guess, I think his studio albums don't hold a candle to the way he sounded live. And just, subjective opinion. But he was incredible, and I hope that his live stuff gets out more and more because he was something. That's another one I didn't catch live, and I put him into that last question too. But an amazing performer.
That's an amazing thing to me when an artist live transcends something that just can't be captured, essentially, because there's a lot of artists like that who and so, a lot of times this is why I like festivals a lot, because there's, I'll go check out a stage of a performer who they have a song that I like or something like that. And it might change my life and be like, oh my God, I didn't know, I didn't understand. And so that kind of thing almost feels like a hidden secret, like you're being let in on something like, oh my God, not everyone knows what they're missing here, like how special this is. And I always love something like that.
And I will have to admit as well, it allows a certain amount of I'm petrified by the idea that, what if I'm, creating the tracks that don't do the songs justice, that it makes you go down that avenue and start to worry about that. But you can't seize up when the red light comes on, because you'll never give the truth that way. But it does make you think. It makes you think, it's what is the truest nature of these songs, and trying to give it to people.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Number 8, what is your favorite album?
This is a question that to me can't possibly have a right answer.
You can put any parameter on it too, like anything you want. There's no wrong answers essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no right answers either. But let's see. So I think the thing that comes to mind, there's all kinds of records are like benchmarks for helping us realize something, right, or getting through something. But I think Van Morrison's Astral Weeks, I think, was important to me in hearing somebody who had clearly demonstrated themselves as a songwriter, then using their voice, almost like not even just the voice, the lyric as a jazz instrument, like lyrical impressionism in the moment, somewhat. I'm sure most of it was probably written down already, but some of it, repeating a certain lyric, you're deciding that if you were to write that lyric down, you would repeat, that was fascinating. And what I understand in the background of that record is he got together with musicians who are consummate jazz musicians without a whole lot of, rehearsal of any sort. They were all kind of feeling the song in the moment. And so there are stories in it, there are narratives, but some of it is just, it feels abstract and performative and impressionistic. And I had never heard a song that way. I grew up listening to old country songs in Dad's car or Caravan. It was Dodge Caravan, by the way. The one with the wood paneling across the faux wood paneling across the burgundy. Sure. That one. That's the one. If you want to picture it. Anyway, we're in the van and we're listening to like the 3.5 minute short story by great country writers. And ain't that way as much anymore, but that was something. And that's what I thought a song was until I heard Astral Weeks, which proved to me that it can be something completely different. You could use the lyric as an instrument. Fascinating.
Yeah, that album absolutely slays me. And one of the things that stands out to me on that album, and it's the same thing that like I have a weird attachment to Blood on the Tracks by Bob Dylan, but not the release, but the sessions that he did in New York that he re-recorded, like the earlier versions of them. And both of them, what it is the sound of the bass on those albums is such a dominant character that like whenever I need to point to something of like what I look for in a bass sound, it's those two albums. Like they drive, man, and they just feel so good. And like I feel like it just grabs you by the spine and is like, all right, we're going on a ride. Here we go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's as someone who is the songwriter, not the musician, so to speak. It's always affirming to find those sounds in places. Wait a minute, there's a snare drum I like, that's cool. Or a bass sound, and to be able to point at those. But I remember not that long ago, I never would have noticed those things separated, in my mind and known that I was appreciating those things. But isn't that interesting that most people listening to these songs, they're feeling those things?
Yes.
They are feeling those things, but they don't know it's those things that they are feeling,
Yeah. Well, you know what it is. There's this concept that I kind of it seems to make sense to me. But they say that human memory is created looking back. Your first memories kind of correspond with when you start to learn language, because you can start to assign a meaning to these thoughts and stuff like that. And I feel like that with music. Like once I started to like play music and stuff like that, because I feel the same exact way as you. Like I am by no means a musician. I am primarily just someone who plays music because that's the only way that I know how to make the sounds that the things that I create. Right. But once I started to learn different instruments and different techniques, different recording techniques and stuff like that, it kind of gave me the language to understand what it was I was appreciating of certain things. And then I started to love them even more. It's just being able to define it, it's awesome.
Seeing the texture or something. Yeah. It's paying attention to a brush stroke, so to speak. Yeah.
Definitely. Number 9, name an artist whose output you'll consume anything they release.
I feel like it would be kind of cheating to name someone who is either past or no longer doing it, because I have to stand by whoever I say, because they're going to come out with something I haven't heard if they're still doing it. So in that respect, I would say I think I need to hear anything Conor Oberst has to say.
Oh my God, yes.
Just talk about, every line is important. Every line has been felt and written, and the way with which he can weave the thought in lines that rhyme. Nuts, man. Beautiful stuff.
Yeah, the guy is just a phenomenal talent, man. Like some of the phrase turns I just can't even comprehend, like where you pull them from. Like it takes a mind to be able to harness that.
Yeah, all of those, that weaving, and within that weaving, just pounds and pounds of flesh. Truth, things that cost somebody something to say.
Yes.
I don't know another songwriter who quite has that kind of, blood in it to me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The 10th and final of the top 10 countdown. What is your favorite Jawn of all time? Again, it can be anything you want it to be.
I was thinking about music, but now that I understand Jawn as way more open, part of me wants to, come up with some brilliant, just joie de vivre thing, like a brownie sundae and a cold beer after a long day. But no, let's keep it musical. It's, once again, impossible to like all time so hard, but probably the most centering thing besides Bob Dylan and John Prine and those usual names, the person who I think was most useful to help me kind of point me in a direction, it was Jim Croce. And I think about taking in all kinds of art with a certain question, and that is like, how did my world change before and after I knew that this particular art existed? And what would my world be like without knowing that this art is possible or this was said? Jim Croce was not, the Bob Dylan lyricist, but something about his approach, his stories, his style of guitar playing, I think they pointed me in a direction as much as Bob Dylan did.
Good answer. Good answer. I love it. I love it. So as we kind of stated here, you are playing the Sellersville Theater right in my neck of the woods on May 7th. You're on tour right now. The tickets are still available for this show, so I hope everyone can pick that up. And the latest album, Emerald Blue, is out. Andrew, this was a phenomenal conversation. I'm like super excited that we got to have this. If any of these good, cool cats and kittens that listen to the show would like to find you on the internet, what's the best way to track you down?
Yep. AndrewDuhon.com is easy. That's Duhon. I'm on the Instagrams and the Facebooks. Haven't really gotten into the TikToks, but let's see. Yeah, it's Andrew Duhon or Andrew Duhon Music. Yeah, that'll be the social meds. And yeah, I share your sentiment that this was a great conversation, and you're an excellent interviewer, and I appreciate you feeling like it might be worth the time, because I've enjoyed it too.
What an awesome conversation. My thanks again to Andrew for joining me on the show today. Andrew's latest album, Emerald Blue, is available on all major streaming services. You can catch him at the Sellersville Theater in, you guessed it, Sellersville on May 7th at 8 p.m. Tickets are still available. And if you would like to find out more about Andrew or find more tour dates and links to all of his socials, you can visit www.andrewduhon.com. Links to all of those are, as always, in the show notes. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to subscribe to the Yo, That's My Jawn podcast, wherever you get your podcasts from. And dudes, it is never too late to get yourself a super awesome Jawn Scout Merit Badge for citizenship of the world just by rating and reviewing us. Don't forget to visit www.yothat'smyjawn.com for articles, merchandise, and links to all of the previous episodes of this podcast. And while you're there, be sure to sign up for our mailing list to get all of the updates delivered straight into your inbox. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/YoThat'sMyJawn for updates and live streams. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Yo That's My Jawn, and search Yo That's My Jawn on YouTube to find the Yo That's My Jawn YouTube channel. Like and subscribe the heck out of that ish. We want to hear from you. Reach out, and touch some Jawn. Yeah, man. So like I said, I'm going to try to get another episode in here before my busy week, but If not, we will be back in May with some all-new conversations. I apologize for the wonk, but I gotta think, you all know me by now. The wonk is part of my charm, no? Blue skies! Until next time, everybody!
Hey yo, displace the guilt and embrace the pleasure. Your taste in music doesn't have to be.
Yo, That's My Jawn is a Lonely Monk production, written and produced by yours truly, Nate Runkle. Theme song by Phil Tyler Music featuring Nate 3.0. Special thanks to Fox Run Brands, DX Ferris, Andrew Scott, Natalie Runkle, and the incredibly brilliant and wickedly stunning Katie Daubney. If you or anyone you know has any ideas they would like to share or any guests they would like to hear on the podcast, please feel free to reach out to us at yothat'smyjawn@gmail.com. Or you can leave an audio message for us and possibly hear yourself on a future episode by visiting anchor.fm/ytmj/message. Until next time, be sure to displace the guilt and embrace the pleasure and shout to the world, yo, that's my Jawn.